Good evening. Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Lentini, and welcome. I am a student of the sale and a teacher of selling and a coach, a success coach. I'm an inspirational speaker. I'm an author, and I've been selling and coaching salespeople and business people for 40 years. So I started in 1975 in the world of sales. So I have a lot to say. I have a lot that I've learned. I do a lot of studying. I do a lot of reading. And a lot of my clients say that I'm the Cliff Notes for all the different books that are out there. So buckle up. I always start a little early, and I give some of the early people some tidbits. Here's some thoughts from James Allen in the book, The Path of Prosperity. So James Allen goes on to say, he who clings to self is his own enemy and is surrounded by enemies. He who relinquishes self is his own savior and is surrounded by friends like a protecting belt. So when one lets go of self and the idea of self and starts to begin how one shows up and lets go of self in the sale, that's in the form of helping others. Miraculous things start to happen when you're present with other people and they don't smell your commission breath. So you'll notice that I say that a lot as you attend these different seminars weekly, which I'm grateful for, and I thank you. Um, People know today when your mission is all about you. And therefore, that's what James Allen talked about in the 1800s, that you're your own enemy. People sense it. So your job is to be interested in what their problems are, what their challenges are, and to help them by. And your thinking is really critical to your success. So let's go on to see what else he says. So James Allen says, before the divine radiance of a pure heart, all darkness vanishes and all clouds melt away. So if you have a pure heart, if you're going in to help others, you're truly interested in their well-being, people notice it. All darkness vanishes, all clouds melt away, and he who has conquered self has conquered the universe. So these are great thoughts to begin this kind of seminar about with, because I talk about not only ways that you can increase and close more sales through a strategy, through maybe a certain technique that you use or a tactic. And I think tactics are tacky because I want people to be real and to show up as real. But anyway, it's not a bad idea to have a strategy and to think about different ways of approaching people because humans are different. And if you let go of self, if you let go of the selfishness, if you let go of all of your own goals, then people will notice that you're there to help. And what happens is they feel freer around someone who doesn't have a predetermined objective, like to close them. You know, I'm going to close them. I told the boss I'm going to close them. And then you get in the car and you go there and you are focused on doing what you promised to the boss. I'm going to close them. If I was your boss, I'd say don't go there except to help them buy. Understand what the fit is. Let's see if we're a good fit for them, and let's see, because we have rights, if they are a good fit for us. So one must let go of self, which is the enemy according to James Allen, and really be present. So how can one be present? Of course, we've talked about it in the past. If you've worked with me, you know, breathe. And just be in your body fully without any predetermined agenda. You must detach from outcomes. Learn to detach from outcomes. It's total surrender to the moment. All right, welcome to all the 6 o'clock people, and I'm grateful that you're here on Webinar Jam and that you were able to join me. Thank you. You can always tune in 5 minutes early and get the bonus. And those of you who tuned in early got the bonus about the power of thought and some ideas from James Allen. Okay, so welcome everybody. Last week I told stories about how in some potentially large sales, both, one was near $1 million, the other was over. I talked about how I let them go totally. I surrendered to the moment. I did offer my help and let them walk out and let them have the space of, we were not a fit. The company I was working for was not a fit at that moment. But I gave them some ideas and I truly listened. I didn't mind. I didn't challenge them about that they couldn't use us, that we weren't a fit. I just wondered why. How come? Talk to me about it. I understand it. We might not be a fit. And once I understood their problem and intently listened, I was making a connection. And both of those sales came back to me, one within 2 weeks and one within a month. And they were truly miraculous sales. So you'll have to go back to last week's webinar to hear the story. And if you don't agree with me, then email me or come on chat and say, Steve, I don't agree with you. These sales weren't miraculous, but I'd have to question your sanity. So we told stories. I told stories about what worked in the past. And so this week, I'm just looking at my notes and what my thoughts were and outline were for what I wanted to accomplish with you today. And again, I'm grateful for the time that you're giving and the attention that you're giving, because you're going to close more sales. You're going to leave different than you showed up, and you're going to certainly get value out of the work that I do. There's no one that hasn't. No one. So it sounds like it's brag, but it's not. It's just fact. I am a student of the sale, and I have studied the different ways that people show up, both as salespeople and as customer. So in the future, I'm going to have a few customers that'll tell you horror stories of salespeople and how they showed up. And I think you'll find it really valuable. In fact, on my website at stevelentini.com, I believe there is a video from one of my good customers for a prior client, and you'll get to hear what they have to say about salespeople that horrified her. I mean, literally just horrified her, and who she eventually gave the business to and what she said about them. So it's really interesting perspective to hear it from people who are doing the buying. Okay, so today, in order to close more sales, one of the principles that I wanted to talk about is it's not about you, and I've mentioned that before. It's about you, how you show up. So what's important to learn is how to be a chameleon. And it's not about giving up who you are as a person. It's about really actually being so present with your prospective client and making a connection with them that they feel that you are like them. So that's the chameleon principle. You want them to feel like that you are like them. And, really, you don't know them all that well, especially if it's a first call, but it could be a second or a third call. And there are ways, without you even having to find out what they do or how many children they have, or if they're a golfer or a tennis player, there are ways that you can bond with them and send them that subtle message that you're like them. So we'll talk a little bit about the chameleon effect. We're going to talk about the power of thought and what that effect, the power of thought, what effect it has on a sale or not. We're also going to talk about some stories of salespeople and how they showed up, and then you can get a sense for what their blocks were. I'm going to invite you to chat with me and tell me, what do you think their blocks were from the story? This is real, live, true events. I'll change the names so that we don't upset some of the people from my past. But and they may not even recognize themselves in the story, because I like to say their heads were so far up their ass that they have no idea that they were really the block to their own success. And believe me, we all are. I've had my head up my ass in my life plenty of times, and I suggest that all of us have. And we just have to get, so what? I say, imagine not knowing. So if you never figured out that you were your own block, that you had your head up your ass at some point in your life, and pardon the expression, but it's graphic enough for you all to get it, that there's no way that you can succeed if you're walking around with this effect that you have on people and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. So most of the people around us have that same problem, and we would accuse them of that, not realizing that it's really this is a reflective universe. So we'll talk a little bit about that principle. This is a reflective universe, so if you think others have their head up their ass around you, if you think others are idiots or obnoxious, whatever it is you would accuse people of, you have it. They're actually showing you. You know, that's a pretty shocking principle to most people. Now, you can get reinforcements about that kind of training from EST training, the Forum, Landmark. If you do some research about those kind of classes, you'll get reinforcement around it, and you're going to hear it every time you tune into one of my events, that it's really critical to get how you show up. We're all an asshole somewhere, pardon my French, right? That's the truth. So just get it. Now, the faster you get it in sales, the faster you will succeed more. You'll close more often. And it's about getting to that place where you can have an adult conversation with clients and prospects, and even moving them emotionally by challenging them. I love the challenger sale, for example, because you've established some trust with them, and then you can say, hey, this is where I have to tell you that you might get mad at me, but I've got to say this to you, and how do I say it? Most times people say, just give it to me. If you're not grounded, if you're not in your body, and if you really have some place where your head is in a dark place, you're not going to know how to do that, because you're going to be more involved in your own objectives, in your own goals. It's what I call being attached to the outcome. And you won't be present in the moment. It's really critical to be present in the moment. And that's one of the ways that you can bond with people faster. It's one of the ways that you can have a real conversation much faster. Okay, so let's go into the chameleon principle. So how does one show up as a real person and still make a connection with all the different kinds of personalities there are in the world, or in just the sphere of our prospects? You can think of all the different personalities that you've already called on. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different personalities. But let's say that you call on 50 people a week. 50 different people a week is 200 different people a month that have different personalities, different needs, different things going on in their life. And so here's how you will make a connection with them. Number one, breathe and be in your body. Breathe. Number two, you're going to listen more. You're going to listen more. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you're going to listen more. Number three, my dog is barking. He's trying to get my attention. Number three, if you're not attached to the outcome, so you're going to the prospect first, again, you're breathing, you're coming into your body, and then you're wondering naturally, are they a fit? Not, hey, I'm going in there to close them. This is going to be a good one. I got one, boss. No, you're curious. Are they a fit? Does what I have to sell them, is that going to work for them? What are their problems? What are their challenges? How can I help them? So by detaching from the outcome, you must go in there totally objective, even as with the idea that you're going to help them decide if you're the one or not, or if they're the one for you. So you go in with that curiosity, and you're noticing everything. How are they sitting? Is the buyer like this when you come in? What would that tell you? That would tell me they're blocked off. After a few minutes of chatting with them, if they didn't open up a little bit, then I'd say, okay, so I see your arms are crossed, you're a little closed off. Is it something I'm doing? Is it something going on that you need to talk about? Is it something that I did this morning? Or Were you upset about giving us the appointment? Take it on to yourself as much as possible. But what I notice right away is where their energy is. I'm going to call it. That's adult. I'm going to help them with it. So if they're relaxed and open to me, then I'm not going to say, hey, you look relaxed and open to me. What's going on? No, I'm going to say, all right, so tell me what you were thinking when you gave us the appointment. What were some of the thoughts that you had about us? And then I'll talk to you about some of the ideas and thoughts that I had. But first, I really want to understand where you're coming from and what are some of the challenges. Now, before that, I would suggest that you set aside about 20% of the time for the call. So if it's 60 minutes, 10, 12 minutes bonding. And what you do during that bond period is you talk about whatever the client begins with. Hey, thanks for the time today. I'm just wondering, how did you get the job? How long have you been in your job? What are your responsibilities here? How long you been here? 20 years, great. How did you get there? You find some way to establish commonality, but I'm going to give you some clues about how you can do it almost immediately. One is you certainly make eye contact with them when you shake their hand. You make eye contact. I like to silently bless people and wish them joy, happiness, and success. I bring you joy, happiness, and success. Deepak Chopra said that you wouldn't go into someone's home without a gift. So you bring a gift of a silent wishing of joy, happiness, and success. You could certainly ask if you can bring the donuts or bring some coffee for the crew, their office crew, or you could bring a promotional giveaway. Absolutely, all of those things. But then while they're talking, your goal is to get them talking about themselves. Everyone loves to talk about themselves. So tell me, how long have you been here? And what a little bit about your responsibilities and how you got here. And while they're talking, listen to the terms that they use, the words they use. Because what you want to do is mirror their words. You want to mirror their words. You want to use some of their words. Not so it's like, a tacky technique, but you're actually showing them some respect. You're showing them respect for who they are because you're acknowledging some of the terms they used. I've noticed on calls people use the term stakeholders. And as customers, they called them stakeholders because it was members of a group. And so I said, our Sandler guys, when I had the Sandler license, I said, our team are stakeholders. We're all stakeholders in the company. And it wasn't just that one word that opened up the door, but by using terms, later that afternoon, as we were leaving a certain building after a meeting that had actually been kind of disastrous, I said to my potential customer, was that the meeting from hell? The trainer from hell. She said, oh, is that what you were thinking, Steve? I said, yeah. She said, oh, me too. I'm glad you said it. Right? I'm the guy selling training, and the person that we used as an example of that particular licensee's training, she thought he was the trainer from hell. I thought so too. So I brought up my biggest fear. I brought it up to her. And then she's saying, well, we have different stakeholders, and I know you guys have different stakeholders. So she repeated that whole thing, that you guys have different stakeholders. Not everybody's going to be the best at it. And I get the message, and I like the message, and I know you're going to be delivering the training, and I know you, Steve, will deliver good training. So I said, well, Peggy, then what are you thinking we should do next? She said, I'm going to send you a contract. We're going to set up a schedule, and we're going to get going. So I closed the sale after she had witnessed the trainer from hell. But I was in my body. It didn't matter to me if I closed the sale or not. At that point, I was really concerned. Was it a deal breaker? It was the trainer from hell, Peggy. Oh, wow. I'm glad you felt that way. It was the trainer from hell, Steve. You're right. We both had a laugh over it. It didn't prevent the deal from closing because she saw the need that we were addressing being the need that she had, the pain she had being addressed by our program. So I'm never worried about losing the deal. I'm just want to be with my client, and if I don't get the deal, then if not now, then maybe later. If not later, then if not at all, then it wasn't a fit. I didn't lose anything. What I do is I leave them with respect for me, and I have respect for them, and we both agreed it wasn't a fit. So when people tell me that salespeople are slimy and greasy and I don't like them and they're pushy and it's all about them, those are salespeople who are not trained, probably don't even know they need to be trained. They think they're great. A lot of them. I've met many, many, many. I'm going to tell you a few stories. I've met many, many, many who think they're great. They had no idea. So being chameleon-like is being present and to be somewhat like the person in front of you. So you would use their words, you would match their speech. So if they talk a little slow, a little soft, then you slow down, you talk a little lower. If they talk quick and they talk loud, they go, hey, take this down. We like this, and we like this, and we like this. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you very much. What else? Okay, great. Here's what I got so far. You said this, you said this, you said this. Yes, they're going to think, wow, this guy's like me. They're not even going to know that it's because you're matching their style. Right? So if you got somebody talking quick, hey, Steve, you know, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. Come with me. Let me show you this, 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 and this. This is what we're looking for. And I'm going, whoa, slow down, John. This is way too much for me. How's that going to work? He's going to throw you out or not buy from you and tell everyone else, wow, was that guy slow? So it's not about you. Remember, it's not about you. You can match body language, but when they're talking, if they're tilted a little bit, then when they're talking, you kind of shift and tilt a little bit. You don't have to exaggerate it, match it exactly. You know, if they kind of go like this once in a while, when they're talking, maybe you do the opposite here, you know. They take their glasses off and you don't, you have your glasses on, you take your glasses off and set them on the table a little bit. Sometimes if you can't see and your sight is a little fuzzy, that actually helps you make a connection with people because you don't have to make that intense direct eye connection because you really can't see where the heck they are anyway. Well, maybe your sight is not that bad, but it softens your eye connection, your eye line, because you can't see quite as well, right? You took your glasses off. They put the glasses back on. When they start talking later on, you put your glasses back on. Maybe they go like this and talk to you like that. So once in a while, you take your glasses down and you do the same thing. Those are subtle ways. It's called matching and mirroring. It's been around for a long time. A lot of people don't do it because they're so attached to their need to have a sale. They got to have a sale. That's it. I'm going to close you, whether I can help you or not. I love what Herb Chambers does in New England with his billboards. He says he doesn't like salespeople either. Yeah, because the process, people have been trained by very, very poorly trained salespeople and people who think they're, it's extroverts who think they got the, you know, they get the coolest thing that they say, they slap people in the back. They're just all about them. They're narcissists. And so they never make an effective connection and they wonder why they push people away. Some people need a nudge. Some people need you to pull back. Some people need you to really be forceful and close them. But because people are all different, not all buyers are the same. You have to be chameleon-like. You have to be a little bit different. And the way to do that is, number one is, don't walk around with saying, hey, I'm the nicest guy in the world. I don't push anybody. I'm Mr. Easy. That's not going to work with everyone. You better learn to shift a little bit and change with people who are kind of wishy-washy. When you hear words there, I'm thinking about it. Oh, it's kind of nice. No, you know, maybe in a week we'll make a sale. I would say with people like that is tell me what's maybe mean. What's maybe in a week? What's going on? It sounds to me like maybe you really don't want to make a decision. Maybe you feel some pressure. Maybe it sounds to me like you don't have the budget right now. It's okay. Why don't you share with me where you really are? Maybe we can make it work for you. What if I What if I were able to bill you next month? But first you have to hear what they're saying. You have to invite it by being grounded and listen for wishy-washy words. If they're definitive, I've got 3 people. It's going to be a bid. And the lowest guy. Okay, so the lowest guy typically doesn't work for us. I appreciate you're going to have 3 bids. The lowest guy doesn't work for us. What's your experience with the lowest bidder? You want to have an adult-adult dialogue. If you're not going to be the lowest bidder, when are you going to tell the guy? You better. So people that are definite and have these tough and tight positions, you pull back a little bit. You pull back. People that are wishy-washy, you nudge them a little bit. People that are kind of stuck in the middle, that have no movement whatsoever, it seems like you're not interested at all. Sometimes that begins a dialogue. No, it's not that we're not interested. Let me tell you where we're at. Listen at that point. Listen. Okay. Let me tell you a few stories about salespeople that had no idea how obnoxious they were. So I worked with a guy one time on the road for, a couple of weeks. And I noticed how pushy he was with everybody. He didn't change at all. And he had no idea that there were certain people that loved it. Hey, Mr. Dan, we love you. We're glad you're here. Then there were other people who were like, you could just see it. I mean, sometimes they raised their eyes. Sometimes they flashed me a look like, hey, Steve, this guy's nuts. And so he worked 3 times as hard as he had to. He was very successful, but he worked 3 times as hard as he had to. Then there was another guy who I met who purchased a territory from from another salesperson. So he purchased, say, $1 million territory, and he paid the retiring salesperson for the territory. And he was paying him every month over, I don't know, 3 years. Gave him something down. He bought the route. He bought this customer list. It's not really a route, but then over 3 years, he proceeded to go from that $1 million down to $700,000. And I said to him, what's going on with you? You've gone from $1 million to $700,000. You paid for the route, and you're watching your investment just bleed away. What's happening? And he went crazy with me. He said, the company sent you. I knew they were going to do that. And I said, whoa. I'm here to find out what's going on so we can figure out how to help you. I mean, your sales have gone from $1 million to 700,000 in 3 years. How does it feel? So what do you think was going on with that guy? He had no idea. He wasn't working. He had no idea what to do. He bought the route, and then he thought that the customers would just continue to repeat. I mean, if sales go down $300,000 in 3 years, I know the person hasn't worked, which is okay. They owned the route. They owned the customers, but they hadn't worked. So I was hired to help, and the person was resistant to coaching and to the true story, right? The person was resistant to the truth. How could he grow? He would never get over himself. So that was what James Allen said in the beginning. I read something that said, he who clings to self is his own enemy and is surrounded by enemies. So this is what this guy was, stuck in himself. And he didn't want to hear it, didn't want coaching. We've all met people like that. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the truth. So you know where their head is, right? For those of you who joined us a little late, their head's in a dark spot, right? Their head's up their ass. And we've all been in those places. It's okay. Imagine not knowing. I want to learn where I'm an asshole and where my head is stuck up my ass. I want to learn about it. And by learning about it, and I have people who surround me and tell me when I'm in that kind of mode, and I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it. I've learned a lot, and I continue to have success and grow. Okay, so it's also good to understand that depending on what you sell, you have to be different as well. So let's suppose you sell a lot of scientists. Do you think they're really going to want you to be Ms. and Mr. Relationship? No, they're going to want you to be more business-like, more factual. But if you're matching and mirroring them, then it's easy enough to know. You'll take your tone down a little bit. You'll be more factual, and you'll deliver the message that way. But also, it's smart to, with people who are very scientific or want the facts. I happen to coach some software people and some healthcare people who tend to deal with people who are more scientifically trained. And so in those cases, what you want to do is notice when you're making presentations. Don't make broad-based assumptions. Break your presentations down to the level of each group. So I've seen groups of PhDs sitting around a table with users of software, and the user presentation was very mundane. And so what do you think the PhDs were doing? They were nodding off. They weren't ever going to use the software at that level. And here, the salespeople were showing them that level of the software. So they were sitting there for an hour, and eventually they were falling asleep. They were so bored. And the salespeople never noticed it. So there's a level of awareness, right? It's not about your product. It's not about your agenda. It's, hey, I'm glad to have everybody around the table. All right, so who's the users here? And you get the hands raised, you know. Who's the actual readers of the information? Who's the inputters? And you get all that. Who are the decision makers here today? And you say, okay, so I've got the presentation broken down. So for you that are inputters, you're first. For those of you that are users, you're next. Third will be the influencers. Here's the schedule. And fourth will be the decision makers. Is that okay with everybody? Again, you're tailoring it to the people, to your audience, to the people around you. It's not about you. It's not about you. So the power of thought. So James Allen has got some great books about the power of thought. The As a Man Thinketh, the Path of Prosperity. I'm just going to leave you then with some of his thoughts. Okay. Come then out of your poverty. Come out of your pain. Come out of your troubles and sighings and complainings and heartaches and loneliness by coming out of yourself. James Allen, I love it. He talks about complainers. There's no way complainers can be successful because their words have power and they're complaining about their lives, or they're complaining about others, or they're complaining about their job. Anybody who's worked with me for a long time say, if you got a complaint, you better have a request that goes with it. Because I don't want complaints. I just don't want them in my life. Thank you very much. It's like leaving me a bag of, I don't know, dog doo. What do I do with it? You picked it up off the grass and then leave it on my desk. What do I do with it? It stinks and I don't want it. That's a complaint without a request. So if you've spent enough time thinking about things you can complain about, having burdens and misery, then you should also spend enough time to have ideas about solving the problem, right? That's positive. And we all have our challenges and we have issues in our life. The key is once you get the problem, start working on the solution and start talking about the solution. Okay, I want to thank you for those of you that attended tonight. I'm grateful. It'll be on YouTube for a little bit. That's great. And then it'll be available again on EverWebinar Jam, and I will provide the link. If you have questions for me, you can always call me at 917-805-1088. That's 917-805-1088. You can also email me at steve@stevelentini, LENTINI.com. steve@stevelentini.com. Email me. I'm always glad to help. I'm on LinkedIn. Again, steve@stevelentini.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. SP Lentini on Twitter, at SP Lentini on Twitter. You can find me. And again, you got my phone numbers and you got my email. Call me anytime. I'm glad to help. That's my mission. Thank you.